Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Art Talk. These are a series of conversations we have with artists who are currently exhibiting in the Mott Community College Fine Arts Gallery. And today's exhibition is Looking Back, which features former Mott Community College photography professors. And we are very lucky to be joined by Fred Cross, Robert Van Marter, and Bob Rentschler, all who have been extremely influential in this program. This exhibit also includes Bruce Edwards, who was not able to be with us today, but we want to welcome all of you. We want to welcome our panel, so thank you for joining us. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you. So, this is a pretty impressive exhibit that we have in here, and it is always wonderful when we can get photography up on the walls in this gallery space. So I have a lot of questions, a lot of things I want to know. I'm sure the audience, as we start to learn about all of you, will want to ask you some questions as well. So I'm going to start with you, Fred. Yeah, I know, right? It's always the person who sits closest to me, and I rigged it. So can you talk a little bit about how the photography program got started here at
Mott? Well, Lansing had a program, and the program at Lansing was doing very well. This is a story I've been told. I don't know how factual it is, but the science and math department was looking at their enrollment and thinking that maybe their enrollment was a little low. What could they do to boost the enrollment? The science and math department already had a photography class on the books, but they hadn't offered it in a long time. Long story short, they decided to reactivate that program. I showed up the Thursday before school started looking for a part-time job teaching photography. Science and math did not have an instructor yet, and so they hired me.
So the class was already enrolled, nobody to teach it,
Nobody to
and you
teach.
just, like, serendipity took over, and
Yes.
there you were.
Nobody to teach it, one enlarger, and what was the other? Oh, one tank for developing film. 24 students in the class. Yeah.
So you developed one roll of film the whole semester in
Yeah.
one print? Is that what you did?
What they did, they gave me some vouchers. I went down to Big George's appliance store in Ann Arbor, bought some enlargers, 5 enlargers, and tanks, and came back, spent the weekend setting them up, and we went from there.
Well, you didn't have a darkroom, did you?
The chemistry instructor, one of the chemistry instructors, Dr. Saturnino, lent us space. He had a small room that he could use for research. He wasn't doing any research at the time, and so he gave us that space. And Dr. Wilson gave us a sort of a dark room. The geology lab had a 2-person dark room, okay, and he gave us that space. So we were able to go from there. Chester Wilson went home that weekend, built a trough for trays, right? And off we went.
That's incredible. So you taught that one class, so then what was the next step? I mean, you were hired as a part-time instructor, right? So
yeah, I'm part-time. They had another part-time instructor. We offered 4 sections, I think it was 4 sections of the beginning class, 180. The next semester, and people kept saying, well, you've got to have more classes, you have to have more classes. And I'm looking at 5 enlargers and 24 students in a class, what are you talking about? Gee whiz. But anyway, eventually we added more classes. We got up to, I think, 4 or 5 different classes. And I managed to do 2 semesters in a row as a temporary full-time instructor. After 2 semesters, turns out they have to hire you permanently, or you move on. And so then I was a full-time instructor after that.
And what time period was this?
This would have been 78, 79, 80, in there, yeah.
And then how long did it take from that kind of offering some Photo 180 courses before you saw the need to develop a full program?
Well, excuse me, the school got a grant from somewhere, I don't know. Anyway, and the person that was the acting chairman of the science and math department said, Fred, if you're ever going to have a program, now is the time. There's money. You got to do it now. And that would have been, oh my gosh, 1985, I'm thinking off the top of my head. I'm not sure. But so we did a needs study, and excuse me, we put together classes. I looked at Lansing and RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology, and Brooks. What do they offer? And I kind of tried to juggle those things together into a 2-year program, and went through all the committees and got it approved. And we started again with not enough equipment. I bought 4x8 sheets of foam core and some downspouts, PVC downspouts to make room dividers. So if we're going to do any kind of studio work, we would haul all the tables in the classroom out into the hall, set up the room dividers, and we need more space. We need more space. Eventually, enough students, enough space. Went to the RIT building, and
as it continued to grow, right?
And it just kept growing, yeah.
Yeah.
So, and continues to grow. These guys, right? Help.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, I remember being a student here, and you, Rob, you were my Photo 180 instructor. Yeah. Actually, my wife and I both were in your class. I think it was an evening class, and you liked her work way better than you liked mine.
Uh-oh.
But I won't hold that against you. That's
All
okay. She was good. She was good. So when did you join? When did you start teaching here?
I would say probably in the 90s, but I was off and on a little bit in the 90s, but I taught at also Washtenaw. I started there in '86, and then I went up to Lansing Community College, and I would go back and forth. But it was about the time Mary showed up here that I came here at that time too, and things were kind of going gangbusters at that time, really took off, and that was probably 95, 96. In that area, right there when it really took off. So I was actually teaching at 3 colleges, making the rounds, which would take up my day trying to make it to class here just in time and all that stuff. So it took quite a bit, plus running the business. But yeah, we were here. I was here when Bruce was here, Dave was here. I think we had 5 of us.
Nick, there were
Basile
5
was
of us.
Here, yeah.
There were 5 of us
We'd
at
go
one
9
time,
a.m.
yeah.
to 9 p.m. every day.
Yeah.
We were booked solid with classes.
Booked
It was
solid.
great.
Mhm.
A lot of fun.
And then rushing off to the next gig
Yeah.
for you. I never
Yeah.
understood how you managed all the different places you had to be.
Yeah, well, it was tough. First of all, I worked all the hard industry you can do in Detroit. I worked in foundries, steel mills, had all the really nice jobs. But I started out with weddings, doing weddings, because you can do that on the weekend. But of course, Sunday, you just recuperate Sunday, and it's time to start all over. And so I did that for many, many years, used up my vacation, holidays to do weddings. Then I went to a foundry working in aerospace firm, and of course I got a job there in the photography department, which was film, chemistry, and of course they started video. That started happening, video and the cameras and stuff. But we did all that kind of stuff, and then I started doing corporate industrial on the outside, and so I wouldn't go on vacation with my family because that's when I do my jobs, or I'd work around the clock 24 hours just to do it. And my studio was in my basement till I got wise one day and said, the heck with travel, I'm just going to do studio stuff. So that's what I started doing about 10, 12 years ago, just small product studio stuff. And really what was great is being in the middle of all that photography, doing weddings and all this stuff to this point, and teaching at the same time. They both fed each other, and I was like, which is not a better spot to be. You know, what I learned out there I bring here, and I learned a lot here and took it back with me. I learned a lot from my students and everything.
Yep.
So yeah, that's where I went. And 2 years ago I said, that's it.
Time for a break.
Time for a break, yeah, and here I am.
That's awesome. And so, Mr. Rentschler,
Yes,
you
sir.
were our previous, past, present, I don't even know, program coordinator
Program
for
coordinator,
photography.
right.
So, can you tell us a little bit about how you got started here and your experience?
My teaching background, I won't go into how I got into teaching. It's a long story. A lot of my students know it. But I saw an advertisement. I had been teaching at the community ed level a basic photography class. I think I had taught 4 classes, one up at like Carmen Ainsworth, one down in Heartland or something somewhere. And I was like, well, this is great. I really enjoy this. And I saw an advertisement to teach one photography class here at Mott. So I got an appointment with Mr. Cross and came up and showed him my portfolio. And fortunately, I managed to stuff everything I could think of in my portfolio. And he had asked me about, show me one day of work. So the good and the bad. So I had photographed a house, really interesting, cool looking house for an architect. And so I had all of my negatives and all of my contact sheets, thumbnails, big thumbnails for all you out there. And I showed all of those pictures to Fred so he could see the progression of shot. So I started here, I went there as I refined my lighting and refined the angle of the shot or whatever it was. And that's one comment he made to me, that he kind of liked seeing that he could see my growth in a confined space. So the living room, he could see 5 different angles of the living room and saw that, you know, each shot got a little bit better or looked a little nicer. And so after the interview, he goes, well, go down to this room down at the end of the hallway down there over in where personnel is, and I'll tell them you're coming. And I was like, okay, I guess that means I got the job? I don't know. It was just kind of like, so I just go, you know, I'd never been on campus before. I walked down this hallway, I turned and I go, hi, my name's Bob Rentschler. They're like, sit over there. Okay, here, fill out this form, and here, go to this place. So they send me this place, and I go there, and they cut a big hunk of my hair off to do the drug screen test. And I was like, okay, I guess this is really serious now. I'm really going to be working here. So I taught one class, and I loved it. It was a great time. Fred gave me some good feedback on my teaching, and Cheryl, my first dean, gave me some good feedback on my teaching. And then Fred retired, and you know, I interviewed for the job. There was an interim person in there for a little while too, and then I interviewed for the job and got the job. And 16, 17 years later, I decided to retire. You know? So it was a great run. I miss you all. I don't miss anything else. I miss you all. So.
No early mornings, you don't miss the late nights, making
Well,
sure
if-
everything's prepped.
If Heidi was here, she's not here. Heidi is one of the former students. She now teaches art and photography at Clarkston Schools. And it was an 8 a.m. class, and I asked a question. I forget what the question was. And there was about 4 responses you could give to that question. You know, I'm being very general in their question. And crickets. I mean, not a word from anybody in the classroom. So I got off my stool and went and sat on the desk. I was just like, you're not going to beat me. I'm just going to sit here and be quiet too. So I sat there and sat on the desk and stared at everybody in the classroom for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes. It was a long time. And then I pounded my fist on the table and I said, okay, we're done. You all leave. And they were stunned, and they were like, look, I haven't got time for this. If you guys don't want to learn something and participate in class, I got other things to do. So leave my room. So I threw them all out of the room. I said, you can come back. If you want to come back, let's learn something. Let's have some fun. Let's be a class. So I said, you can come back in 10 minutes if you want. And then I'll know you're interested in learning something. So they all came back, and it was a wonderful class for the rest of the semester.
So for,
Yeah, the 8 a.m. classes were like, get rid of those.
yeah.
Yeah.
As soon as you could, right?
As soon as I
Oh,
could.
Yeah, moving
I
that.
think I remember talking to you about it too. I said, what am I going to do? This is like, nothing happens at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I didn't want to be there at 8, but it's the way it goes. It's your job, so you got to show up. But
I wanted to start my classes at 7. They said no way.
No.
Well, that's
yeah,
because you
yeah,
had too
see?
many other classes to get to. You had to fit it in your day. So,
They wouldn't do it.
so thinking of where you started, where it kind of progressed, how it ended. Tell me about your thoughts on the industry of photography, being a professional photographer, the kind of things you've tried to impart to your students over the years, and as you've kind of already alluded, Rob, how the influence of the classroom affected you professionally. How was that experience for you? Any of you?
Anybody.
Yeah. You're all mic'd, so you can all talk over top of each other.
The classroom is a great opportunity for experimentation. It is the place. It is the kernel, the where you can try things and see what works and what doesn't work. And that's good for teachers and for students, because really that's, you don't want to make, Rob and I have talked about this, you don't want to make a mistake out where you're getting paid. Make the mistake in the classroom and then have your instructors help you correct it. That's where you want to make mistakes or ask questions, so that when you go out and are getting paid, you're doing the right thing. You're not going to get fired. So, I don't know. I love the classroom.
Well, I think that's important, what you're saying right now, and I hope you're all listening, because I think probably one of the biggest challenges that a lot of us see today as we talk amongst ourselves, faculty, is that students are afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah, they want to be safe.
They want to be
Yeah.
safe. They're so worried about getting an A on their
Right.
project or what that grade is. The idea of play and experimentation is kind of missed.
Where's Tim? Is Tim back there? Tim and I were just talking about this the other day when I stopped in with some of his students. It's play, but play with a purpose. I think that's really important. And then you find out, whoops, I had it at 85 degrees and it should have been at 80, and it didn't. I ruined the printer, I ruined the film or whatever. But you learn something. So
Other things about your experience here, your teaching.
Well, when I wanted to get in photography, I saw wedding photography. I thought, eat, drink, dance, and take a few pictures and get paid.
Woo, party!
That's for me, man. Who could like that? As it turns out, weddings is one of the hardest jobs I've ever done.
Yeah.
It's incredibly difficult to do it. You have a lot of responsibility, but I'm glad I did it. I'm very glad I did it. And it's very competitive today, but that's more opportunity for you guys.
Sure.
You guys have it way better than I had it. I used film, okay? And I learned to do multiple exposures back then when nobody knew what the heck I was doing. And I still use those today in Photoshop to make my image, the same technique I used. So it still has to do with photography, but that was a stepping stone to me. But if you're a good wedding photographer, you can make a good living being a wedding photographer.
You can.
Your heart has to be in it. You got to work, but the rewards are there. And today, with all the electronics and computers, the way to sell and everything, it's made for you. You couldn't have anything better going for you than all this digital stuff today for weddings. So that'd be good. So I did that. The other thing I like to talk about is I also did a lot of corporate work. If you look at my website, it's vanography.com. I chose that, sounds egotistical, but when I did Robert Van Martyr, everybody just gave up, it's too long of a name. So I thought Vanography, and it works. But anyway, that's what I've done recently. It's all product stuff. It's nice and neat and tidy, but I also think business is important, and you have to understand it is a business.
Yep.
If you take a business class here, it's good, but it doesn't touch on anything that photographers need, because it's all about copyright. It's all about copyright. Your photos are protected in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 8. It talks about how they're protected under copyright. And what many students don't know is when you make photographs for even someone else, it's your property. When I shoot a wedding for a bride and groom or portraits for anybody, I can sell them prints, but I own the image, the rights to the image. They own the rights to themselves, but I own the rights to the image. Weddings is not that profitable, but for corporate work, I can sell and release that to many people many times as a stock image. If you give that away, it's gone forever.
Yep.
If you are in a class where you design websites, that website belongs to you. That's your website. You don't sell a website, you lease it. They do lease everything today. You're leasing Photoshop.
Yeah.
So if you understand copyright, and I've had to go to court right over here at the federal court on 5th Street, been there. If you understand, it'll help a lot. So my recommendation was understand the business of photography, which is copyright, contracts, pricing, all this good stuff. And I no longer belong, but I did for years, to a place called ASMP.org. Check it out. It's a good place to be. They come to schools, they help people, and they're going to be professionals that'll tell you the truth. And so I went to a meeting, and they told me to bring my price list. Well, I'm kind of guarded in my price list. Why do I want to show you? Well, I went into the meeting, and every other photographer put their price list, their contract, and everything out there for everybody to see. And you know what the first thing I learned? Man, I'm really taking this in the hind end because I'm way underpriced. Oh my God, no wonder these guys like me. That was a lifesaver there. So then I'm showing everybody my stuff. Help me out here. That's what you need, and that's one of the few places you're going to get it. There's a lot of stuff on the internet, but check a few good organizations around to do this. You'll learn, but my suggestion would be for most photographers, ASMP, and it'll actually be a big deal to your life. It'll help you tremendously. So.
That's great. Fred, how about you?
Well, my story starts at Chrysler Corporation. I was working there, testing cars, testing emissions 7 days a week, which really gets on your nerves after a while. Anyway, after about 2 years of that, 7 days a week, I decided I couldn't take it anymore and started thinking about what would I rather do. And I decided I wanted to teach, okay? Well, now I had to decide next, what do I want to teach? And I was taking photography classes in the evening, and it dawned on me, gee, maybe I'm interested in photography. Yeah. And so I put the two together, excellent instructors that I had, excuse me, and my interest in photography, decided I wanted to teach photography. I went to Southern Illinois University, got my master's degree in photography, came up here and got a job. But my real passion is, or was, teaching, okay? And that's kind of hard for people to understand. They think I'm teaching photography. Oh, your passion must be photography. That was really teaching. You know, I really enjoyed it, very creative. And when I started here, like I've said, it was hard work. I mean, really hard work. A lot of extra time, and it was worth it, and it kind of forced you to grow, you know. So anyway, that's my where I'm coming from. I never worked as a professional photographer. I had other jobs where I qualified to be thought of as professional, right? And I found that the same attitude towards your work and your job carries over, whether you're an engineer or a photographer or whatever, teacher. You know, that idea of being professional and taking your work seriously is important, naturally. So I did come in contact with fine art photographers, people who sell their work, go to art fairs, that kind of thing, published in books. And I discovered, much to my amazement, I guess, that these guys are working full-time at this.
Yeah.
You know, Howard Bond and
Howard,
Arbor.
yeah.
Every day, 5 days a week, he was either in his darkroom printing, mounting, cutting mats, contacting people, writing articles for Darkroom Techniques magazine. It was a job. It wasn't, oh, gee, I think I'll run out in the woods and take some pretty pictures, and maybe next week I'll get around to developing them. You know, in the meantime, I'm going, you know, wherever. So that was kind of an eye-opener, I guess you'd say. But that's sort of my story. You've got to be, wherever you're going to go, you got to plan on working at what you're doing.
Yeah.
And there's going to be an intense competition from everybody else that's trying to succeed and make a living at it, you know, naturally. So that's where I come from, I guess.
You have to put the time in.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to play and experiment
Right.
before you get to the job.
I always say you got to wear out some shoes. You got to
Yeah.
knock on a lot of doors.
Yeah.
And that's hard to do because, you know, we don't like rejection. But you're going to get rejected a lot. Now we got somebody, thanks a lot. Okay, bye. Here's my card. Okay, see
Well,
you later.
right, and I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
Rob, what you were saying too, I mean, like being a wedding photographer, right? Like, I could never imagine that responsibility, right? It's a one day, one moment. You miss anything,
That's right.
you
Yep.
missed it.
Right.
There's no redo.
That's right.
Your film didn't
Yeah.
expose correctly.
Yeah.
Something went wrong. SD card failed now,
Right,
right?
Right.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So there's a lot of, you have to bring a lot of experience
right.
and effort into whatever you're
Preparation.
doing, right?
Right. Practice.
But it's a passion,
That's exactly
right?
Yeah,
So for all the photographers here today, right, following that passion, that's just part of it.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Hard work's is a part of it, but it's pleasurable work. And
Right.
I've always put in way more time than I'm required to. But in the end, that works out. And it's funny, but it seems like in just my later decade or so, it feels like I finally came into my own. I'm finally doing this, but I remember, I don't know if it was at school, but we were talking about a world famous celloist who was 86 years old, and he was being interviewed. And during the interview, they found out that he still practices 6 hours a day, and he's 86 years old. And he said, "Why do you do that?" He goes, "Well, I'm just getting good." And he meant it, and that's the way it goes. So I think it really never ends.
Yeah.
And I said that I learn a lot from my students. I actually do. You talk to your students, they bring stuff out. They know a lot of things that other people don't know and stuff just by where they've gone. So yeah, it's all a thing. And the students I've noticed, especially up here, they seem to work together in the studio and stuff, whether it's the computer lab or whatever. They all seem to help each other out, and that's really a good thing to do. And they just take it upon themselves to do that. So I thought that was kind of good too. So that's the part I like with school.
No, this has been a great environment. I really enjoyed it. I love the range of student that I had in class, from, you know, dual enroll students. You might get a 16 or a 17-year-old. And then I always talk about Howard. He was 82 when he started the
So a
photography
gold card
program.
student
Yeah.
potentially, right?
Yeah, that was really cool to have that range of student in the classroom. It was a lot of fun for the instructor. As Fred said, the educational side of you, you know, you get to play back and forth on all these different personalities and experience levels and things of that nature. And I really enjoyed that part of it a lot here. And I think Mott fosters that, that, you know, college is for anybody, you know, kind of thing. And I always enjoyed that aspect of the classroom. So, you know, I don't know what else to say. It was a great run. It was a great run. I really enjoyed being here. So,
And
Yeah. We had a good team at the time.
We did.
We had a good team all the way
We
through.
really did.
So everybody, from the beginning to the get-go, we just had a good team.
Yeah.
Seemed to work good there too, yeah.
yeah, we had a great boss. We had good organization. We had good funding. We had, you know, good facilities, things of that nature. We were able to get a lot of things done in a relatively short period of time. And That's just a lot of fun. You know? Yeah, you work your tail off, but it was a lot of fun. You know, it really was.
So to kind of go into the next kind of series of questions, I want to talk about the work that you have up in the gallery, which I know we can't all see it right now. You can in here, but those of you who are with us in the live feed can't necessarily see it. But maybe talk a little bit about what you're currently focused on, what your current work is, and why some of these were the images you selected to share with us.
Fred, tell me about this time thing.
I know, right?
This is really cool. It's really your time study thing.
Thank you.
It's really neat. I was really look at that stuff going, oh, that's really. So where'd you come up with the idea? What was the?
Well, several years ago, my wife and I were in Florida, and we went to a gallery, and there was a photographer there. His work was there, and I unfortunately don't remember his name, but he had some beautiful pieces, and one that stuck in my head, very large print, maybe 5 foot by 3 foot. Oh yeah.
Oh, big.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And a young lady standing sort of in a woods kind of a setting, in a dress with blackbirds. She's holding a blackbird in her hand, and there's blackbirds flying around. It was a composite.
Sure. Okay.
You know. Yeah, and I thought, oh wow, that's impressive. So anyway, I got the idea in my head that I wanted to try doing some composites.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I enjoyed Jerry Ullsman's work. Okay, composites.
Composites.
But I couldn't afford to set up a darkroom with 5 enlargers and all of that. Anyway, so I carried that idea around with me for quite a while. I tried doing one that several years ago, that came out okay. And more time goes by, and finally I decided, okay, if I'm going to do them, I got to get to it.
Okay.
Right, and so now I wanted to do a series. I didn't want to just randomly do stuff. So I came up with the idea, or popped into my head from somewhere, who knows where, time. That could be the theme. Okay. So now I need specific ideas, and the very first shot that I did isn't up here, but I've got, it's a shot of a metronome with the Leonardo da Vinci's the
Vitruvian Man.
Vitruvian
Yeah.
Man, thank you. He's taped to a metronome,
Yeah.
okay? And he's going back and forth like this. It's kind of blurred. Okay, so anyway, that was the first one. And this
Okay.
is working out pretty well.
Yeah, that's really
And,
interesting.
to me, one of the fascinating things besides the image is the experience that I have creating them. I'll pose a question for myself. Okay, I finished that print. What's going to be next?
Okay.
And some time goes by, and I might be driving or mowing the lawn or whatever, and an idea pops into my head. Like my dad used to say, "Where does the time go?" That was one of his sayings. Where does the time go? So I thought, oh, there's an idea for a shot, which is the bottom right shot over there. So my mind, I leave it alone, and it just starts building. And pretty soon I'm thinking, I can add a compass, I can get a sextant, and I can do this, I can do that, whatever. And enjoying that process and those little surprises that come along when you aren't really thinking about
Yeah.
it. Letting my mind incubate on the idea, okay?
Very good.
And spit stuff back at
Yeah.
me. Try this, try that. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. And I guess the other thing is being willing to start over again.
Make mistakes.
Yeah.
Iterations, yeah, that's important. You want to have an industrial strength trash can. Okay? Yeah. This isn't working. Okay, I've got to go back to the
Throw it
beginning and
away.
start over again. Throw the rest of that away, right? You can't get so emotionally attached.
Or be willing to say to yourself,
Yeah.
that's terrible. Throw it away. 'Cause, you know, we don't like to be that critical, but
Right.
you know, in getting some of these prints right, I'd still tinker with all of these that are up here a little bit.
Yeah.
Am I 100% happy with every picture that I have up here? Pretty close, but I'd always want to tinker a little. But I was telling you that there's a little edit that I want to make on this one shot that I have here, and you know, there's a couple things that I would do a little bit
Yeah,
different.
I think, I'm not sure, I think it was Michelangelo said, a work of art is never finished, it's just abandoned. So at some point, you're putzing and
gotta
putzing
quit.
and putzing and, okay, I gotta stop, you know. I can go on fixing things,
Right?
you know, for quite a while. But anyway, that's where it's at, and I actually have 15 of these things done,
Oh, cool.
and I think maybe I'm about ready to quit and try and move on to something else.
So what's the new theme going to be?
Well, I've been, spirituality is, yeah, you know, it's vague enough, and there is so many possibilities that it should be easy to do, or well, relatively
Conceptually, it's
easy to do.
So when you're creating your composites, how are you doing that? You talked about the cost of everything. So how are you doing it?
Well, I start by making sketches. So I get an idea. I've got a little notebook that I put sketches in for ideas. I sketch it out and continue to let my brain ponder. And at some point, I was, okay, you know, I need a watch. I need a hammer and a clock and a jar. That's what I want. I get on eBay. I buy stuff. So I gather the stuff. I light it. I shoot it. Load it into Photoshop. Most of them are focus stacking images. I work on them in Photoshop, the individual images. Put them in, I create a white canvas background, put the individual images onto the white canvas background, and then you can, of course, change the size, shape, whatever, you know,
Transform.
contrast,
Sure.
texture, so on. Work on those individual pieces, then I try to get them to fit into a decent composition, a decent design, and when I'm close to what I had hoped for, I quit. You know, I print it, and there it is. Did I answer your question?
It did, yeah.
Okay.
So you're doing you're shooting studio, then taking it into Photoshop,
Right.
and doing a digital process to
Yep.
kind of do digital darkroom.
Yeah, print it, mount it, mat it, frame it.
And the nice thing is, because of today's technology, if you ever felt like you needed to revisit it, you can.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Easy to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So, Rob, how about you?
Well, first of all, Mr. Cross used some really good words in there. Make you think a little bit. I thought I was the only guy doing that, but as it turns out, now there's other guys doing that too. But very, very insightful the way he uses some nice words, includes spitting back at you. And those are the way we talk, but we understand that. One of the things is I think he said he gets different ideas and so on, and he waits, different ways he's inspired. But at the same time, I think that the technology sometimes drives your image. Because what can I do? Oh, look what this does, and it changes little minds. So you go here and there, and it pulls at you. So don't be afraid of the technology to have a little bit of say-so, or at least guide you and direct you.
Or experiment with it.
Experiment with it and see what you're going to do, because you guys got so much more than we had with film. So someone today said, well, how old are these pictures? Well, they recognize the style, it's film, but I brought that since I forget the term for us today. They used to teach from a time ago. It's there from, this is the early 90s, but what was there is I opened a studio, it was Glamour Boudoir, and actually she's my stylist, makeup artist, and here she is again, and this is a politician here. But anyway, that's what they wanted. So we would supply all that, but once again, you know what, that's working with the public. Yeah, I had enough of that after 5 years. I got out of that. The weddings was okay, but I'm in charge of the whole thing. So I didn't really like that, so I'm back into the corporate world. What I've done now is Photoshop is fantastic, folks. You got to understand how wonderful it is. It's called Photoshop. Never forget that. But it is not a substitute for good photography in the first place. I'm looking at Mr. Cross's work here. And he's starting out, his photography is great to begin with, because then it's just parts. So that's what's important. You can't disregard and just say Photoshop does it all, because it doesn't. They work together wonderfully, but you got to, they're different. So what I've done in these other ones with the bottles and so on here, other than the motorcycle, is all those backgrounds really do not exist. When you have a studio, it used to be, I used to go out and buy these products, bath mats and mirrors and glasses, and have people build these incredibly expensive sets for me. It's time and money. It's terrible. Today, I can do that in Photoshop. Half these filters are in Photoshop. You just build what you want in there. So you can build reflections to look real. You can build little carts, but you have to have that little intuitive. Like Fred says, there's little stuff here and little stuff there. You can't let the little stuff go, folks, but it's all there. And it's another world. It's a dream world. And once you sit down at your computer, as you know, you look up and it's like 10 hours later or something. You're just having a great time.
2 o'clock in the morning, how did that happen?
So what I've said to myself is if I can shoot the product, such as a bottle or a pen or whatever, with no obstructions at all, because I shoot my things in space, like a pen, it's glued to a pole that you can't see. It doesn't lay down, because if it lays on something, you can't light it the way you want.
Right.
But if you put it in space, you get the best lighting. Now, what background do I want? Anything I can come up with in Photoshop, and I use it. So other than the main product, all my backgrounds are created. A couple of these have multiple exposures, which you guys learn in Photoshop. Learn to use multiply and screen for putting images together. It's going to make your life real easy, okay? It's going to make it fun. So that was about it. So these other guys are film, black and white film. You can see the grain in it and stuff like that. It was a nice time, but you had to shoot it right. There was no correcting it in Photoshop or any of that stuff, and that's where the pressure was. That doesn't mean you don't have to shoot stuff right. You still want to do the best job you can. But you have,
You don't want to, when you're shooting, you don't want to be thinking, well, I can fix that in Photoshop.
Right.
I can
Right.
fix this in Photoshop. I can fix that. You know.
Shoot it right to begin with.
Yeah, you make it work for yourself.
Yeah, have good photography to start with, and that gives you the range of which then to operate off of. If your photography isn't good, now your range is narrowed. And, you know, I don't like limitations. Being creative, you know, you want to look at something one day and do this, and then you want to look at it the next day and do this. So I like having range. And having good photography gives you the opportunity to pull the range in any direction you want to go. But having bad photography doesn't allow you to do that. You can't. You have to go and reshoot it. Well, if it's a location or a scene like a lot of my images are, can you go back to that scene in those atmospheric conditions again and get the exact same shot? No, it doesn't happen, or it's extraordinarily rare. Or when you go into the Grand Canyon again. You know, I've been there once. You know, I hope to go again, but, you know, it's that kind of thing for me with travel. So I tend to, you know, hunt and look for images all the time when I'm out and about. And that's the result of a lot of these is looking for something. Or, you know, having a commission like the pastel sunset over there in the corner was for good friends of mine. Well, we would, you know, in conversation, we'd really like, that shot was in Crystal Lake in Michigan, but they live outside of Denver. And so they told me one day, we'd really like to have a nice shot of the sunset on Crystal Lake someday. Put it in the back of your brain, and when you're available and there's the right conditions, I mean, when I sent that to them out of the blue, they didn't know it was coming in the mail. I sent it to them. And oh my gosh, they were just crying on the phone. Thank you so much. This is wonderful. You know, but you know, you have to avail yourself of situations, and that gave me the reason to take that image. It's because I was going to give it to friends of mine, that kind of thing. So, you have to be available to listen and look for situations that is going to be something that's fun for you to photograph and capture and do stuff with. This shot of the Christmas lights on these trees, this is about a mile from my house, and this guy does this every year. But I could never catch it when there was a foot of snow on the ground right after a fresh snowfall. So that's like 2 o'clock in the morning. Just as the snow was dying, it was still snowing when I went there, but nobody had touched anything. I got fresh snow on the ground and finally got that shot. And I've been trying to get that shot for, 5 years, but it was never the right conditions. I drive by there, go, nope. Drive by there, nope. And then it was midnight, and I looked at the weather, or I looked outside and said, the snow's going to start tapering off. And I was like, okay, put on my warm clothes. I got to go get this shot done. And I gave the people that lived there one of those images, and they were thrilled. And I got a big long letter back from them and stuff like that. It was really nice. So I see things, but I have to find the right time and the right atmospheric condition. I've always wanted to take this shot at Grand Sable Dunes in the UP, but you got to be there when the sun is setting, and it's got to be the right cloud situation. And I've been there 3 times, and it's like, lousy, get in the car, leave. It's like nothing you can do. But I got there, and it was cloudy. You can see the clouds on the left side of the frame, and I was like, oh. But I set my tripod up, and I sat there, and then the sun starts to set, and it broke underneath the clouds, and I just was like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. And I got the orange on one side and the yellow on the other side, and I was like, this is what I've dreamed about, is this image, to be able to get that. So
it was probably good you didn't jump in your car and just drive
away
again,
when I
right?
saw that it was kind of cloudy and not very good, and I'm kind of racing to get there. I wasn't going too fast, but it's really curvy road, so you can't go too fast. But and then I shot it several different ways while I had the time frame there, and that's a 3-shot panorama that I didn't correct the horizon on. I wanted to keep the curvature. I kind of liked the curvature of it. That was kind of fun to have something different. The bay, it really exaggerated the bay that's there. So I wanted to kind of exaggerate that, so I did it. I shot it multiple ways, but I really like the 3-shot panorama together, put those together. And again, Photoshop, you can stitch that together, and I'll defy you to go up there and tell you where one frame starts and the other one doesn't. You can't. It's a wonderful tool. It's just a wonderful tool to play with, As I say, 10 o'clock at night becomes 2 o'clock in the morning like that, because you're like, this is really cool. I can play with a lot of stuff. So I'm kind of a hunter. I look for images, like the girls with the cows up there, set the camera up for shallow depth of field, hand-holdable shutter speed, and walk around and look for stuff. But you got to be ready. And I knelt down, got real low, and the girl was grabbing the halter on the cow, and click, But you got to be looking for something like that in order to get it, because you won't get it just kind of walking around. You got to be kind of focused and really looking for images in order to capture them. So my process is a little different, but we're all still kind of the same. We still have ideas, and then we try to, capture them. So
I think if you want to be creative, one of the habits you want to get into is trying to be creative all the time. So it becomes a way of life. It's not something you turn on and turn on. Oh, I've got my camera and I need to be creative. Flip a switch. Nah. All the time.
well said.
And a second habit that I think is good to try and develop is now I forgot what I was going to say. I'm sorry. I'm old.
Practice or
Iterations.
good habits?
But
okay.
I said that already. Shoot. Sorry.
That's okay.
There were two ideas.
It'll come back.
I
It's
thought I
going to
turned
come
it
back.
off.
It's going to come
Yeah,
back.
it might. We'll see.
There's always one in every interview.
I turned it down. I guess I just didn't turn it down all the way. Anyway.
Well, all right, why don't we do this? I want to give the audience a chance to ask some questions. So, yes.
Do you guys still have problems finding the correct settings and everything like that?
I would say it's not finding the correct settings, it's will the settings that I want to use allow me in this lighting condition to use them? Or do I have to do something else? Or come back on another day? Or, because I know I want to do this, but there's not enough light, or there's too much light, or it's the wrong conditions, or whatever. So it's not so much finding the right, it's fitting what I want to do in that situation. Did that make sense?
Yeah, that
Sure.
makes sense.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
For all of these things, most of them I'm shooting in my little studio space. And I often use a gray card, take a reading off the gray card, and that 99% of the time that gives me a decent shot with detail where I want it. So I just don't worry about it. And I also have my camera set so that I get to set the f-stop and the shutter speed. The camera chooses the film speed, ASA speed, that works with the shutter speed and the aperture that I have set. So I do it that way.
As far as the correct speed, I think it's more along, are you going to get what you want to get out of it? And you have to look and pre-visualize. You need to understand what you're looking for instead of taking it and seeing what you get. And you say, well, I don't like this. But what's good today, in my day, with weddings, you can't make a mistake. Fred knows his metering really good, so he knows what he's going to get, but that's learned. And so one day they came out with this thing called a Polaroid, an instant thing, and we couldn't wait to take a picture in a camera. And now I can see before I pull the trigger or release a shutter, is this going to be good or is it not going to be good? That was limited, but today you have your result right there on your screen. So there's your answer. If it's not what you want, do something about that. That's what you want to do. Today's pictures are also a little bit different because of what we do. Bob may do it a little bit. I do it more in the studio. But many of these pictures, like Fred, they're not all done at one time.
Right.
Look at all the different elements. Everything's a different element. Well, you can do that. I do architecture. We do architecture, lights like this. What if you wanted a sunset? Those lights don't blend. So what you do is you take a dark picture of the building, let the sun go down. Okay, then when the lights come on, expose for these lights, then turn those off, turn these on, expose for those lights. You're actually doing one image in many different shots. That's what I do in the studio with bottles. Can't do it with people, but if you have a product, a motorcycle, I don't do one shot anymore because you can't get that perfect shot. But if I do the tailpipe, now the fender, now the handlebar, now the headlight, 20, 30 different shots, each portion is perfect. Each is perfect. So, of course, you have to be on a tripod. but that way, just think about that. You no longer have to settle for an overall shot. I don't do that. Everything I shoot is probably 10 or 12 shots to get it done. So you have that control, but that little window on the back is to let you know whether you like it or don't.
I wanted to start off saying it's beautiful work, guys. But my question is, how do you feel about film making its way back into like mainstream?
How do you feel about film?
Yeah, coming back to the industry.
Oh, film in general,
Yeah.
coming back. We were all film guys. We all love it. But what I've seen and what I get the feeling for once in a while is shooting some medium or large format black and white once in a while. I kind of still want to get into that, and that's partially because of Fred, and it's partially because of one of Fred's friends, Howard Bond, who's a fine art photographer in Ann Arbor, was one of my teachers. Yeah, I would still kind of like to do a little bit of black and white film once in a while. And not once a month, but a couple times a year. Yeah, I could really get into the minutia and the detail of working with black and white film again.
Well, I really miss the smell of Fixer. I don't know what I like about it. I missed that.
I hated the dark room.
And I remember doing this really well with
Oh,
the
yeah.
film and all of that.
Rolling
and
film
shit.
into the-
So I do miss all that. But man, what I used to do, what used to take me hours, is minutes. So your productivity has gone from this to wow.
Yeah, right.
Now, I was a film guy. I was probably the last guy they took kicking and dragging.
I think
I don't
I
want to
was,
let
but-
it go. I want to. And then one day I just said, I got to do this. And you know what? I love where I'm at now.
Yeah.
I do miss all that other stuff, but here's where I'm at, and this is what I'm really going. And there's just, it's wonderful. So yeah, you're gonna miss it. I miss the look. I miss the feel of some of this stuff here. But as far as productivity goes, it's really slow. Yeah, that's gonna be a thing there. So I think there might be in some classes in schools, I think there's a good understanding if you, because you learn something about the image forming, there's still
Yeah.
something magic about that. So if they had like an introductory class, I know some do to feel this, I think that's a good experience to get that feel of film and stuff too, yeah.
And
that's
what Mr. Cross said about metering, getting your exposures right.
Yeah.
You know, film is unforgiving.
Yeah.
So metering everything, so you know what your range of contrast is in a scene, became second nature for us. I mean, you lived and died by your light meter on your right hip. You know, it was just, and the better light meter you had, the better off you were. You know, so I think that was a good foundation, a good understanding. Kind of like the basic drawing class is a good foundation, good understanding of form and shape and shadow and things of that nature. So, you know, black and white film is still a good teacher.
Well, I'm kind of the odd person here because I was never that crazy about printing the chemistry. Okay.
I understand.
And a lot of people really got into that at the time. But I would say, you know, if that's where your passion is, that's where you go. And if you can make a living at it, great. If you can't, then you're gonna have to be creative and improvise and figure out a path for yourself, you know. But what I can do with the Photoshop and the computer is just way beyond what can be done with film. And I meet with people that shoot, you know, like 8x10 negatives and a little bit smaller, maybe 4x5s maybe, and they're in there with pencils, you know,
Shading or
shading,
yeah.
right, shading the negative, or scraping the emulsion off the negative, that kind of stuff. Holy smokes. You know, I'm just.
It's like jewelry work or something. You know, it's really
That's not me, but if it's you, terrific, you know, go for it. So,
So, Fred, you just said something about making a living.
yeah.
And our dear friend from online, Cheryl, has asked maybe you could talk about how to get paid for your photography to the students.
Go for it.
Well, I would say in my almost 25 years of being a commercial photographer before I started teaching, setting prices was probably, if not, was second to the most difficult thing to do. Because you say you're $125 an hour to, I was at Chrysler on a contract for 14 years. You say that to them and they go, okay, start tomorrow. You say that to the little mom and pop machine shop that's in the industrial park. I live in Fenton. There's a bunch of little shops in the industrial park in Fenton. You tell them you're $125 an hour and they start choking. So trying to find that happy medium of what to charge based upon your clientele is difficult. You know, if you always work for Fortune 500 companies or whatever, great, yeah, you're $125 an hour or whatever it is. And that's fine, but you know, you're working for a small little startup company. I once took these pictures of this adhesive sprayer to spray on adhesives in an automotive environment to stick things to. And this guy was cobbling this stuff together out of his shop that was, about the size of this room, so he doesn't have a lot of money to throw at his promotions. You need to promote, we all know that, but you have to go in there and go, okay, so maybe I'm going to be $125 an hour, and I'm going to charge him for 2 hours, but I'm really going to work for 4. Okay, so there's a lot of give and take in those situations, and I've had people, get angry with me with how much I was charging, and then the check practically beat you home in the mail, because they understood that, hey, see that, I had a Dodge Caravan for years, there's $40,000 worth of equipment in that Dodge Caravan, and I had to buy it, insure it, and maintain it. So I don't make $125 an hour. I got to buy all that equipment. I got to pay for the insurance. When it breaks, I have to get it repaired, and it was an expensive undertaking. I flew. I did a lot of aerial photography in my career. I flew for 20-some years, and I had to carry a rider on a life insurance policy because if I died in the airplane, my wife wouldn't get anything because that's considered hazardous duty pay or hazardous duty employment. So I had to carry a rider on my life insurance policy. So you don't think about those expenses, but you have to expense everything out and really see where you are. So it's a difficult situation, and demand your payment. We were talking about that earlier about weddings. Get your money up front. You booked that day. You can't make any money. If they cancel on you at the last minute, well, I could have booked that wedding. I could have booked another person for that wedding, so I just lost all this money. So you've got to get something. So you deserve to get paid.
What was it? How did she word that question?
Well, how do you get paid for your?
Well, how do you pay?
Yeah.
Well, there are different ways. When I started in weddings, I got paid $7.50 per wedding. Per wedding. But what I was doing was I was being trained. And I made a deal. This guy said, if I train you, take about a year, for the next 3 years you shoot exclusively for me. Because he's not going to train me to go shoot my own weddings or someone else's weddings. He's not going to be. So you sign that contract, no compete clause. Well, after 3 years, I was happy. I stayed working for him, but now I could get my own. So a lot of times, I've had people offer to pay me if I take them on weddings with me. I didn't do that, but that's what you get. But so that's all I was getting. I was downriver. It got eaten up in gas and everything. But in the meantime, I learned. So then I worked for them. There was a nice paycheck extra. And then when I started doing my own, you kind of feel what you want to do. Now, I didn't have a big fancy studio, so my prices were less. I sold a smaller package, but it worked dandy for me. Then when you go, depends where you go. When you go into corporate work, that's a different story. What Bob said, you're starting in contracts and all that good
Liability
stuff.
insurance.
Everything, travel. And what they do is they pay you for rain days, sick days, no one showing up days, driving days. There's a lot to it. You need to know a lot about it. So my recommendation is be an assistant. If you can be an assistant for somebody, even if you say, I'll work for free, I just want to learn this. And many people at the top have done just that. You've got to take a step backwards before you can take 2 forward sometimes. And so that's the way you want to do it. But once you get rolling, that's it. But I do have some advice. Don't borrow money. Do not say, I need to buy a studio and go into business. Don't do that. You'll end up paying through the nose for that. I saved my $7.50 and from my other job to buy a camera during that time. And then you had to have all that equipment. So all your money the first couple years, you're not going to Disneyland or anything. It's going back into your business, and you're scared to death. After a while, you've got it solid, then you can start taking a little bit. But it's not an overnight thing to do. Many different ways to go about it, but it is a business. So
Yeah, I
that's where
sold
you're at.
I sold a 1965 red Mustang convertible to raise money to buy equipment.
Yep.
I did not want to sell that car. But, look what happened.
There you go.
So it can work out, So that was the only thing I had of value. And I needed some better equipment. So it's like I watched it drive away. Still remember that day very clearly.
Well, I just want to make a few comments. And I'm a film guy too, and I took a lot of thousands of pictures every time we go on vacation with my family, and scenic and all kinds of stuff. At that time, because film kind of expensive, so kind of limited what I can take, 100, maybe a trip or something. And now I take hundreds and thousands, because of digital with the phone, And so I want to learn more about it, digital camera. So I got privilege to have Bob. I call it cool, fun guy. He always uses a cool. Is it cool? It's fun, So for him, for my first digital class, I learned tremendously. I learned a lot. I know how to set up some of those settings. I'm still learning, okay?
Sure.
And so that's great, And then, believe it or not, I have the first official, non-official job, photography. And the Mott Dental Hygienists, they have a convention couple weeks ago down the riverfront in Flint. And Mary, the one, coordinating that, asked me, hey, I know you're taking photography class, and we know each other from a Seattle Hiking Club. And can you take picture for our convention? I say, well, I never done that before. No, you're good. The Mott photographer, Mike, I think he's not available. He was doing something else.
Sure.
So he asked me to do it. Gee, I really feel privileged. They asked me, a student can able to do that. So I did that. About 6 hours there taking picture with my new digital camera, and take a lot of picture. So far, they haven't, replied me back. I hope it's good. I took about 300 pictures, got 200, finally edited to 200. I think
Sure.
they're pretty good shot around the convention. All the students there and so far so on. And another thing you guys mentioned about the Photoshop, okay? I signed up to second class of Photoshop 190, and the first 2 weeks, I sit there, I'm totally lost. I say, man, this is a tough program to learn how to use it. And believe it or not, I did call the mission office. I want to drop this class. Well, kind of late, and we will not refund your tuition and anything.
Sure. Yeah.
And you have, say, I'm not a wasteful person. I say, I don't want to waste it, the money.
Sure.
So I stick with that, throughout the whole class. Believe it or not, at the end, we have a exhibition for the student artwork. I won 2 awards.
Very good.
One from Dr. Beverly, he bought one of the pictures
Sure.
from me.
Yep.
It's all Photoshop pictures too. And also Dean Guru bought other pictures too. So,
Okay.
I hope you follow me, took your class and
Sure.
I learned tremendously by doing
Thank
that.
you.
And Photoshop is a tough course to do, Right now I'm taking 2D design right now, and the
Okay.
couple classes I have to do in order to finish the professional photography certificate, okay?
Sure.
Photoshop 192, I think that's the last class I'm going to take. I want to sum up all the energy so I can handle that, But the other one is I think soon okay. I got a few more classes to go, so.
Well,
I thank you very much
Sure, you're
for your teaching and knowledge and all your set up the program. It's just fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
What a great endorsement.
Back to the expense and things of that nature. We all had extra refrigerators at home. It wasn't for beer, it was for film. Because you had to buy, so when you look at expenses of things, we had to refrigerate all the film and paper, your photographic paper for in the darkroom. And you had, if you were doing things in the darkroom, you had to have chemicals on the shelf ready to go. Now with digital, right, what's the issue? Well, I just bought a new laptop the other day. I'm retired. I don't want to spend that much money. I actually found a really good deal on something. But, you always have these expenses because this is the process that you're in now. You have to be able to you know, if you're going to do this, you need, you know, moderately decent equipment. And that involves a computer and software and, you know, all of these peripherals to help you with just the camera, you know.
Yeah,
So.
but you want to be careful reading reviews. I've noticed that about myself. You start reading reviews, you know, stereo equipment or photography equipment, whatever, and pretty soon you get this idea in your head, oh, I've got to have a new camera. I've got to have the new lens, the latest lens. You know, if you're satisfied with the work that you're getting out of what you got, those are the best pieces of equipment in the world right
Yep.
there, you know. Stop, right? If you're not happy, then figure out what do I need
What do you need?
what do I need to buy to get where I want to go.
What do you need to do the job you want
Right,
to do, right?
right. So, anyway.
So I wanted to ask you, would you say for a student that maybe doesn't have a strong interest in photography currently, what would be a reason for that student to take a photography class?
Look around you. I don't mean that. I don't mean to be so flippant about the answer, but look around you, right? We are never more consuming of media in a society than we are right now, right? If you're a business, you have to have 4 or 5 different social media platforms running all the time. You must have an up-to-date website, and you must refresh it or upgrade it or whatever the term we use now, regularly, because you can't have stale content. Because what happens? I already saw that. What's next, right? So in terms of visual things, it's a great time to be a creative because everybody needs you. It's just how are you going to approach it and where you're going to go and what's the job going to be and what's the scope of the job. Are you going to have to wear 3 hats or 5 hats, right? Are you going to have to write mostly in this job and then photography maybe 5 days a month? Well, then you should probably concentrate on your writing a little bit more so you can support the two. In fact, I was just asking Alicia about an assignment she has for the photography students. And I said, do they have to write a paragraph and a headline for the photo? She says, oh yeah. And I was just like, good job, kid. Good job. You're doing fine.
Another thing might be just the sheer pleasure of it.
Sure, good point.
Anybody can take a picture. All you need to go is click. But to make a photograph, that's different. So a lot of people have had beautiful pictures, but if they were asked to do that again, they couldn't do it.
Right.
So when you make a photograph, it's what you want, and you'll get that sense of accomplishment. And for a student starting out, if you would try that, that would be your first class will let you know if you like it or if you don't. But there's a reward there. The other thing is, if you already have an interest, there's something you could do, such as one of my students, well, a lot of them do, but a couple of them train horses. They have really nice high-end horses and stuff. I told her what to do. What can I do with my photography? She takes a picture of your horses. She sent it into a horse magazine, Equine or whatever they are, Equestrian or something, magazine, and she got a whole article with pictures of her horses in there. She was tickled as heck, and that was just her first class she ever took. So you can do things like that, and it's an enjoyable thing if you like that type of thing.
Yeah, I always look to combine when you can. It was one of my professors at Western Michigan University told me, Bob, what are you going to combine this with? How are you going to take this and this and put it with that? How are you going to put it together? And I'll reiterate, another one of our students has 2 boys that race motocross.
Oh, yeah.
And she went to the ice racing nationals up in northern Michigan. She was the only person there with a camera because it's winter and nobody wants to be out.
Yeah,
She took a bunch of pictures, right? And she knows what she's doing. She got good shots. She knows where to be in the corner to get the right angle and the ice flying off the tires and, you know, the good dynamic images. She's now working for the American Motorcycle Association, doing their magazine, writing the articles, traveling all over the country on photographing motocross and racing every week. She travels, goes to races, photographs, and writes. She's unbelievable how it happened. So it can and does happen, but you have to be ready and prepared and do good work. And I mean, she was sending me things. I don't know what to charge. They want to put me on the cover next month. And I was like, okay, then now we're in business. Let's talk about this, you know. So yeah, she texts me regularly, and it's a lot of fun. So.
And you want to keep in mind that what's happening right now is you're just feeding yourself on your experiences. And you have no idea where you're going to be 5 years from now, you know. So if you think you enjoy photography a little bit, do it. It's here, you've got it in your soul, right? And if you need it in the future, you've got it. So you're just putting, it's sort of like putting money in the bank or investing money, you know. That's how I see it.
You're how old?
I'm 26.
Okay.
I missed it. How
You're not 45.
No.
You can still do that at 45.
Well, sure, you can.
Just
Sure you can.
disclaimer. There is no
Right,
age
right.
limit.
But,
There-
but I'm saying you have a little time on your side. That's what I was saying. That, you know, you gotta, I mean, you know, you need to have a certain amount of financial security in order to put food in your tummy and a roof over your head, right? We all get that. But other than those basics, you know, there's being happy. And, you know, yeah, at times I made really good money. At times I didn't make a lot, and it was difficult, and I took on side jobs, and that led me into teaching, and then I ended up here. So, you know?
So we have
He's got
Couple things here. When you said when you first came here, and got your enlarged and stuff, was that strictly, was it color and black and white, or was it just black and white?
just black and
It
white.
was just black and white.
White.
Yeah, I was back in that same around time, the mid '80s, in high school. I lived in Southern California, and I was able to have, I had 2.5 years of photography, and we did actually both. Majority of us stuck with the black and white. It was just easier compared to color and stuff, and really learned a lot. With that being said, then I just sort of, after high school, whatever reason, just sort of forgot about it, and it was TikTok craze, and watching photographers on there, and sort of got that bug in me again, and then so I decided, you know, I want to take some classes and stuff, and then get back into it,
Yeah.
which we're actually next semester have a black and white class we're going to be able to take. I'm really excited to get back in there and in the dark room and just sort of relive that too as well. And then another question is, for us, a lot of us being first, you know, beginning photography, where did you realize that, okay, I know enough, now I want to get paid to do this, to get that confidence, or is it something you saw, you know, you just listen to other people, you know, or how do I make me, myself being a little bit older in this business, do I get, you know, and I've been helping out with the sports department here, taking pictures of basketball
Sure.
and stuff, sending them to Al and then post and stuff. Now, where do I say, okay, do I just, you know, feedback, or to where I say, okay, maybe I can do this for, you know, start getting paid to do this and whatever. I just don't feel, I don't have that confidence yet. Where did you guys decide, okay, I'm ready to get paid for it?
When I started with wedding, first of all, it's a scary thing. Being in
It
business
is.
for
It
yourself is
is.
a scary thing. The rewards are there. As I said, weddings didn't turn out like I thought, but they were the hardest job I ever had. And I worked in a foundry at the time. I'd work in a foundry 10 hours and go do a wedding. I was wiped out. But to be honest with you, the best feeling of satisfaction I've ever had was after I did a wedding, because I knew I did a good job. I worked as hard as I could. I'd get out in the car and take my tie off, and that was the best reward right there. But on my first wedding, I'd been trained for a year. The phone rang from my boss, and he goes, well, when is the wedding? And they said, in 20 minutes. And he says, you want to do it? And I went, okay. So I take off, I go to my first wedding, get all my stuff under my eye, walk in the door, and I saw the cake and the bride. I chickened out and I went back in the car. Whoa. I was scared to death. I goes, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do this. And I said, you know what? If I don't do it, it's all over.
It's all
it ain't
over,
gonna happen.
right.
And I went in and did it, And whoosh, it was only 20 minutes, but I was scared to death, and I was only 19 years old, had to do that on my own, and I did it. Then after that, then you start getting a smaller wet, then all of a sudden you get a little attitude, yeah, I got this, man. Okay. But it takes time to do it. When I opened my studio for the portrait stuff, I didn't just decide I'm going to do this. I practiced for a year doing this, offering models free photography if you'll pose and all this, put all my money into it, and created a package before I could go do it. And that's how it's going to be. It's not going to be all of a sudden I'm here. It's going to be a little at a time, and then you'll get a feel for it and you'll go. But in today's world, you got to communicate. And remember, you own those images unless you sign it away. And you do that by being a full-time employee, and when you are a full-time employee, whoever you work for, and it requires a lot to be an employee, they own the image. Other than that, you own it, but if someone says, we want to buy them outright or whatever, and you say, and you can, you should ask for more, but then you don't get any claim to them, and some images are worth money, such as maybe football pictures. If you shoot those guys, but I'm going to guarantee you right now, U of M will never let you take them. They ain't going to let that happen.
Right.
So you have to
They're
make
gonna
that decision unless you're a freelance or something. But when you're on your own, you want to keep that as much as you can. You just start a little at a time, get a feel for your mistakes and where you're going. It'll take you there. But there's no magic pill.
With that being said, if us photographers are posting pictures on the social media, is those still ours, or is it now everybody's?
No. See, they're trying to confuse us. They say because of the new digital age, that changes copyright. No, it doesn't. Stealing is stealing. Yeah, I don't care how you do it, it's stealing. And so,
But when you
own
agree
it
to
right
a
there.
digital
But if you
platform,
agree to it, yeah.
right? Does anybody ever read the terms and conditions of any of these digital platforms?
You
No,
should.
none of you have.
That's right.
Excuse me, you're foolish.
Yeah.
Because knowledge is power, right? So read them. Even if you disagree with them, read them so you know. Because a lot of these digital platforms, they own everything. You have no right to it. So I don't think I've put up a full res image ever. Because somebody will take it and use it for something. You know, they'll take the lightning picture. Lightning strikes here, whatever, you know. So I don't think I've ever put up a full res image. I JPEG them way down, like a 3 or a 4. You can still, still looks nice, but you can't blow it up, so.
If I could touch on something here, one of the students asked about, wasn't money or stuff, but I talked about shooting what you want, you know, like if you're into horses or knitting or cooking, take pictures of your food. If you're into families, take pictures of your vacation. Always make a vacation story. Do that type of thing. But here's something else. You know, you guys are going to learn photography, and it's going to direct you, but you're going to have a favorite thing you like. Since those are your images, you save them because they're what's called stock photography. And that's your image, and you have that. You can lease it to other people. Now, if a corporation pays you to take it and they don't buy it, because they only need it for one annual report, then they're done. After they're done for a year, then you can sell it to other people under a generic term, generic name, and you should do that. So there are companies out there called stock companies, because they'll take the image, but they don't want to pay for you to shoot it all over and start. You just got something generic. There's your extra income. So if you save that, then you have an easy way to market it on any website. Say, I live in Michigan and I live, I do all these trains that go by my house. Well, somebody's interested in trains out there. Somebody's interested in palm trees, clouds, bridges, different things. So you find out something you like, flowers, you save that, that's your future income, and let people know you have them, and you can start selling, make some money that way too. Your internet's your greatest tool.
Yeah, it won't be a lot to start, but it might be,
Yeah.
you know, significant amount in 10 or 15 years.
And you have to aggressively market.
Yeah.
You can't just put your sticker out there and do it. You gotta push people. You gotta say, hey, I got a nice job by going to a drag strip. I see all these big drag racing, they take nice pictures, but I didn't see any really good photography. Sorry about that, but that's the way I went in. I said to the person that owns this drag strip, I said, here you're getting these shots from the NHRA and all this stuff, and they're good, but they're not really cool. Look at this. So I showed him some stuff, and I did get some killer images.
did.
But it's a dangerous place to be, trust me. It's a dangerous place to be down there. I had jet cars and everything, but I was doing that for a little while and making some money off some of that too, but then I found out I have to go on the road and do that again. But so that's how you have to approach. So I went into these people, said, you know, these are good photographers, but they're not giving you this. I can give you this. And that's how you have to go, because they're not going to come to you. You have to go ask for the work and tell them why you're better.
Yeah, I've gone into businesses and said, look, here's the deal. I'll shoot this piece of equipment or I'll do this job for you for free. If you like it, you got to pay me. If you don't like it, you'll never see me again. And that, you know, but that, you know, it takes guts walking in the door and confidence.
Oh,
yeah. You know, I remember when you talked about your first job. I had been shooting for a number of years on my own, and I had to do this food shoot for a company. And I remember clearly to this day being in the bathroom of the house, because it was the president of this company. They have Chicago hot dog. They have restaurants in airports and things all over the country. This is a multi-million-dollar operation. And I'm in the bathroom of this lady's house with my ad guy I was working with, and I'm putting cold water on my face, looking in the mirror going, I have no idea what I'm doing. But you rely on your basics, and you figure it out, and you rip a bunch of Polaroids, because I'm stalling for time to be creative.
Yeah.
You know, I'm waiting. Okay, when's this going to hit, and I'm going to start getting this right, you know. So, no, the light's not right. The light looked fine, I moved it 6 inches, you know. Oh, it's still not right, I moved it back 6 inches, you know, because I'm just, you know, you got to be creative with your time, because, you know, I'm like, this isn't right. Oh, this isn't working. Oh, there it is. Oh, that looks good. And then you're off and running, and I was fine the rest of the day, and I made a lot of money that day. But I remember very clearly being terrified, as he said. I didn't go back to the car, but I stood in the bathroom for a while, splashing cold water on my face, going, oh boy, what did I get myself into? You know, because you can't let everybody down. You know, you'll never work for them again. And that was a potentially really good client, and they were for many years. So, you know, we've all been there. So, you know, it's not all just like that. You know, so.
Well, gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time this afternoon, for sharing your insights, your wisdom, your experience throughout the years here at Mott with all of us. Thank you very much.
All right.
So,
Thank you.
yes, thank you for today. I want to thank all of you for coming. This exhibition, if you want to see it without the lights and out all the chairs and the space, it'll be up till the 22nd of November. And we hope you'll come back and join us for our next exhibit, which is called The Next Steps, which will feature our studio art AFA candidates exhibiting their work before they graduate here from Mott. That will open on December 4th, and we hope you'll come back to see that. So again, thanks to all of you. Thank you to Brian Williams for Media Services and the whole Media Service team for all they do to make these possible. And again, thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd be glad to hang around for a little bit if you want
Yep,
to
we'll be here.
chit-chat.